Welcome in, everybody, to NBA Front Office Overtime. I'm Trevor Lane, he's Keith Smith, and we are...
Wild Stallions!
It just felt appropriate on NBA Draft Eve that we start with the Wild Stallions drop. Welcome in, everybody. We're really excited. This is a phenomenal time in the NBA calendar. We've got the draft coming tomorrow. I can't wait. We'll be live on the NBA Front Office channel. Hopefully you come join us for that. Keith, I am so excited. I'm exhausted, but also so excited for the draft tomorrow night. I can't wait.
Yeah, you went to basketball camp today.
I did.
What skill did you improve the most? Ball handling, shooting?
Humility. I improved those kids. Those kids showed me up. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's how it would be with me as well. I know you've been pumping out content already from your time. Austin Reeves basketball camp, I believe it was, right? So that is super cool that you got to do that. This guy works, and if you don't know, this guy puts in the effort, man. Trevor will he'll go anywhere where he can chase down a story for you all. So this is good stuff. Yeah. Welcome to Front Office Overtime, my friend. Your first time here in the after hours show. Now that we put a name on it with this, but yeah, we've had a lot of fun in the first few and answered a lot of questions. So I'm glad you're here because it makes my life just a little bit easier. It's hard doing this solo and going, but channel's still alive. We didn't lose thousands of subscribers. As many said, I did not burn the house down. We're doing pretty good, so we're hanging.
Oh, you've been doing a phenomenal job, and it's been a big hit. Overtime has, and we appreciate all of you for jumping in and joining us. And we've got a lot of NBA basketball to talk here. A lot going on as we lead into tomorrow's big draft. I guess let's hop into it here. We've got a question: Paul George to the Warriors or Knicks possible? It says when he opts in. I'm assuming if he opts in. If he opts in, both of those are possible. They certainly could happen. I know from the Clippers standpoint, him opting in and getting traded is, depending on what's coming back, probably better than losing him for nothing. Do you see? I guess let's start here, Keith. Do you see Paul George in a Clippers uniform past, let's say, July 7th?
I'm going to say now I'm 50-50. Like I had been like 90-10 that he'd stay with the Clippers. As the last month has gone on, that is lessened by the day. I'm now 50-50 on that. I still think there's a chance here in the next few days before free agency opens. The Clippers say, fine, we don't want to do this. What is it you need to stay here? But some of the reporting that has been going on around this is the Clippers are hard fast. We are not doing a 4-year deal. We are not doing that. We will do a 3-year deal. Ideally, they want to do a 3-year 150 like what they did with Kawhi and keep it at that. But they have been hardcore that they will not go to a 4-year deal. And that may lead to, hey, we're just going to then take what we can do in a trade package. We'll reset a little bit. I do think if he's not there, it will be through an opt-in and trade. I don't think he will just straight up leave in free agency. I think it will be an opt-in and trade, and that's how it comes together. But I'm now 50-50 that he's not on the Clippers next year.
What's the benefit for Paul George to opt in and get traded versus, say, just walking into Philly's cap space?
Yeah, the one is right in the Philly situation. You have to assume that's how Philly wants to spend it. If he opts in, the universe of teams he can go to goes from here to here. And I just spread my hands very far apart with that, because in an opt-in, that removes a lot of the sign and trade restrictions that the acquiring team would get. It allows him to go to teams that don't have cap space. For example, the Knicks or the Warriors. They can't acquire him in a sign and trade, not in a reasonable universe, not with potential apron issues that would cause for them. They don't have cap space, so they can't sign him. So this would turn into a spot where it would be, that's the only realistic way he can get there. So that's why I think you see him do that. And then what he can do is he'd have to wait 6 months, but then he could still do the same 4-year kind of extension he wants to do beyond this season, which would put him basically in the exact same spot. He'd just have to wait to do it.
Well, I think for the incoming team, if he would opt in and get traded, that's certainly a benefit to not trigger that hard cap that you would if you accepted him via sign and trade. Senpai with a question said, "What time will we hear about draft trades during, or can they happen before?" I think that sometimes what gets misconstrued in all of this around the draft is that we will hear about draft trades that actually happen, and we'll hear about draft trades that are agreed to in principle that everybody acts as though they've happened, but they have not actually been executed. And some of them have to actually wait until the league calendar flips to be executed. But we all act as though it's already happened and it's gone through and it's done. So sometimes all those things can become intermingled. But what time will we hear about draft trades? It could come at any time. And if what Woj has been doing to me so far this summer is any example, it can come at like 3 a.m.
That might actually be preferable to like 6 a.m. I think 3 a.m. you might still be awake.
I may still be awake.
I
That's
know
true.
You've already gone to bed for a little while at that point. So yeah, so here's what happens just functionally, so everybody knows now. What happens with the with the draft? Trades can happen. I believe it's 3 p.m. Eastern. I believe is when it is. Don't hold me to that, but I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern. The NBA locks the draft board. What that means is if the Atlanta Hawks traded the number 1 pick to the Spurs for the 4th and 8th pick, we would get Adam Silver walking out there at some point. The Hawks would make the number 1 pick. Then he would announce, we have a trade. And then he would explain what the trade is at some point, and it would go through like that. So what happens is they lock the draft board. But let's say they agreed to that trade at like noontime. As long as they can get it pushed through the league office, that would be a very straightforward trade because there's no salary matching involved, nothing like that. There's no, it would be just that, presumably. That trade could get made, and then you could see the draft board itself updated. For example, when the Celtics traded the number 1 overall pick in 2017 for the 3rd pick with Philadelphia, that was done a day in advance. So that got done the day in advance. The draft board was updated, and Philly actually picked number 1. When the Hawks and Mavericks did their swap of Trae Young for Luka Doncic, that got done during the draft itself, even though Woj reported it, I think it was almost an hour ahead of the draft that trade was happening. So that's a little bit there. Trevor and I we call it hat shenanigans because kids have to put on a hat for a team they're never going to play for. Kind of for me, I wish they could fix this because I think it kind of ruins the moment for the kid of, hey, cool, I have this Hawks hat on and I'm never going to play for the Hawks, but it kind of is what it is because you got to wait for the trades to be processed and legal before they go that direction.
And then we get those pictures that go down in history where you've got, Kobe in a Hornets hat and stuff like that. And those weird things.
I guess is still kind of fun, right? Because it gives you a little bit of the story behind it, right?
Sure.
And those kind of things. So
it's like when you see it's like when you see somebody rocking a Atlanta Hawks Carmelo Anthony jersey, right? I mean, you never know, right?
Yeah, or the Rasheed Wallace one from
the Rasheed Wallace. Hey, at least he played a game. It was a pretty good game too.
Yeah, it was a good game. Yeah, absolutely.
Jack, yes, Sean Davis will be live with us tomorrow to help us break down the draft.
Provided he doesn't oversleep.
Provided he doesn't oversleep. Sean's even taking fire from Keith. I love it.
Here.
He's not even here. Oh, he might be asleep right now. Okay. So, Keith, this came up I did my lunchtime with the Lakers show earlier, and somebody was asking about a trade that involved Jared Vanderbilt. And I came up as I was talking myself through it, I went, I don't know the answer to this. So Jared Vanderbilt was not trade eligible prior to the trade deadline due to when he signed his contract extension with the Lakers. At this point, is he now not trade eligible until the league calendar flips, or can his current salary be used, say, tomorrow in a trade from this league calendar year? Or is it because he was not trade eligible by the trade deadline, it automatically goes all the way until the NBA's calendar flips over?
Yeah, he's good now. He had a 6-month restriction because he signed in September. That took it was like September. It was middle of September. I want to say it was around the 18th or so, if I remember correctly, in that range. Vanderbilt kid that's a 6-month restriction. Clearly, that was after the trade deadline, but that's now lifted. He can be traded at any point. Now, what's tricky for him is he would be, let me check something here real quick before I say something that's incorrect. Yeah, he's on his new deal too. Oh, well, I guess he's not, right? Because that kicks in this year. So if they were trading him right now, here's the problem. They're only allowed to use he's only like 4-something million last year,
Correct.
right? 4.6. So that's the problem. My guess is if there's a Jared Vanderbilt trade coming, it'll be one of those ones we just talked about. It'll be agreed to, then executed in the new league year when he would count for the full 10.7. Because I can't imagine the Lakers are making a trade where they want him at 4.6 million. They would probably need the full amount in a trade.
Right.
But yes, full free and clear.
Potty said, "Grab your sleep while you can." Those days are already past. That's gone.
Yeah, that was last night. Was the last early bedtime for me.
That was it.
Oh, no.
D-Rock said, "My Nets suck. Oh no." Can Jordy Fernandez flip the script? Are we trading Finney Smith? Will Joe Tsai fire Sean Marks if we stink around the trade deadline? I guess let's get into Dorian Finney-Smith, who we heard around last year's trade deadline had a pretty high asking price, or at least the Nets wanted a number of assets for him. Do you think that changes here? This is the Nets team that we have been maybe a little bit critical of for their super, super high asking price for Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, my guess is we might see something with him. I think because he makes just under 15 million, super easily tradable contract there. I think the Nets are probably more willing to move him than they might have been otherwise. It felt like with the Nets, they were in a spot where they didn't want to move Mikal Bridges, but I think just about everybody else, they're at least open to having conversations. With an interesting rumor that came out today is that they are really potentially looking at moving Day'Ron Sharpe with the Memphis Grizzlies if they don't acquire a center at the draft, being very interested in bringing him in. So that could be a thing. The Nets seem very, very in. I'm glad you just pulled up their cap sheet here. Look at 25, 26. There's not a lot on that list. You're looking at Bridges, Johnson, and Finney-Smith, and not much else in guaranteed salary for that year. A lot of team options, a lot of free agents. So they seem very in on pushing for the cap space plan for next summer. Now, what that can mean is, all right, we're going to clear out Dorian Finney-Smith now and not even have that 15 million on the books next summer. We move Day'Ron Sharpe. If they're not thinking they're extending him right now, move him now and get something for him. And then you clear that out, and you're not even having to deal with his restricted free agency. So I think that could be the way this comes together here for the Nets. But we'll see. I mean, they have as much optionality as just about anybody because they've got that long-term flexibility. They've got a lot of players who are sitting on very tradable numbers, including the guy at the top of the list, Ben Simmons, 40.3 million, but you're trading for that as expiring money to get off of your books.
Yeah, that's just it. That could be a little bit of a wild card on the trade block this summer here because teams are going to value that expiring money. We'll see. The Nets could do something dramatic. I wouldn't say I would expect them to. I don't think I do, but the potential is there for them to do something pretty dramatic on the market if the right opportunity comes along.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a chance, it goes in a big way that way where they do something big. As to the question, I think we knocked it off when we went into the screen share. So let me pull it back.
Here.
Oh, you got it. There you go. Here we're trading Finney-Smith. We covered that. Jordy Fernandez. I think Jordy Fernandez is a really potentially very good coach. I think they're trying to give him a team that is not fully rebuilding, but a team he can actually move forward with relatively quickly, which we'll see how that goes. Will Joe Tsai fire Sean Marks if we stink around the trade deadline? It's potentially that could happen. My feeling, much like I said with the Detroit Pistons a year ago, if you're going to do it, fire the guy before the trade deadline. Don't keep him. Don't let somebody run your trade deadline. That's not going to be there. That can only go potentially only go poorly for you. Now, I will say Troy Weaver did a nice job. I'm at the trade deadline for the Pistons. He got some assets for a couple guys that they weren't going to keep. So, good on him for that. But in general, I believe if you're making a change at the end of the season, make that change before the trade deadline, or basically shut it down and say, hey, I'm not committing to anything. That isn't like an absolute no-brainer of a trade. Like I'm not going to let you make any major decisions if you're not going to be the guy to live with it on the back end.
Yeah, I think you have to be really, really careful about allowing somebody to make those kind of decisions if they're not going to be the long-term person. In fact, there is actually a term for this. It is a Russian term. If you allow somebody to make those decisions when you know they're kind of a lame duck, they're on their way out, it is officially in NBA circles, it's known as getting Mozgoved. That's the phrase that we use. Mozgoved is what it means, is when you let an executive who's on their way out the door make decisions that could come back to haunt your franchise. I don't know where I got that from, but that's the official term for it.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah. Hey, hold on. We're going to get to Devian's question here, but I want to pull this one up real quick. Yeah, it was, man. You did great. I love when you get the chance to do that stuff. So, just wanted to say, well done. And as much as people know, I'm not a Lakers guy. I'm a fan of Austin Reeves. I like him quite a bit. All right,
very much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I mean, a cool opportunity, man. If you're willing to go places, so good lesson for not that you're a young reporter and you've been doing this for a while, but any of the young reporters, like there's a couple young reporters that are really doing great work on the Celtics beat right now. It is because they go everywhere the players are. Players, dedicating a gymnasium, they're there so they can ask questions. That's how you build relationships with the team and with players. People see you around. The players know, hey, you're not just in this to cover me when I score 40 points and we win a game. You're out here at these community events and doing those things. That's how you start to build those relationships. So if anybody's watching, listening that wants to do this, that's the way to get in and go do this. If that's what you want to do, if you're able to, get out there, attend those events, be where the players are. That's how you start to build up the relationships.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of work, that's for sure. I spent a lot of time in the car today on very little sleep, but I was so glad that I went and did that and saw. I can't wait to, Keith. There's a part 2 to that coming. I interviewed Spencer Reeves and Austin, and we didn't talk a lot of Lakers, but we talked all about their work with kids and their work at that camp and what they've done there. I can't wait for that to come out too, because they truly said some remarkable things about what they're doing with these camps. So I can't wait for that to be revealed as well.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right. Davion Nelson said, highly unlikely, but if Cam Thomas and Walker Kessler team options don't get picked up, how much do you see them getting on the open market? Like, I have a hard time even considering, because their team options are absolutely getting picked up. Like, there's no.
All right. So 2 different situations, though. Cam Thomas is a year ahead of Walker Kessler. So Cam Thomas he's already in year 4. Options already been picked up. So he's going into restricted free agency. So what happens for him in that spot would be he is in a place where he's extension eligible right now for a rookie scale extension. I don't know that the Nets give it to him because, again, we already talked about it. I think they're trying to prioritize keeping cap space clear in 2025, and Thomas would have a relatively small cap hold of a little over $10 million next off season. So not that if they don't extend him that he's not a part of their future, but I think they may it's a version of the game the 76ers played with Tyrese Maxey, where we're not going to extend you, we're going to hold your small cap hold so then we can use cap space. So keep an eye on that one. Walker Kessler has a team option, not for this upcoming season, but the one after that. There is no chance the Jazz decline that. He's way too good of a player, and it's for like $4.5 million. So the Jazz will pick that option up. Now, he's very much in trade talks. There seems to have been some form of falling out between Walker Kessler and the Jazz at some point. If you paid attention last year, lost his starting spot, didn't start like he did as a rookie for that team. Still played, but wasn't as kind of an integral a piece as it looked like. And I think the Jazz are open to, hey, if we can make a big move, and they keep saying they're going star hunting, they're making a big trade. I think there's a chance Walker Kessler is offered up as, oh, hey, you're looking for a center? We can offer you a center and we can go that way. Or knowing Danny Ainge, if he pivots and says, all right, fine, we can't get the star, let's bottom this thing out. he may trade Walker Kessler to one of these center hungry teams that doesn't come away with a Zach Edey or a Donovan Clingan in the draft. You want Walker Kessler? Great. Give me 2 seconds. Give me a first. Give me something, and we'll make a deal happen. I kind of think there's a good chance Walker Kessler is not on the Utah Jazz when we open next season.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's more teams that are looking for centers than I can remember in the last 4 or 5 years. And I could just be misremembering, but to me, the center market has always felt like there's a bunch of guys out there. There's more guys than there are teams out there. And you wind up being able to just kind of pick out of 10, 15 players that are all essentially the same guy, right? That doesn't seem to be the case this year. This year, there's a number of teams who really need a big, and I think some of that is you're seeing what's going on around the league. You're seeing teams say, oh my gosh, we need somebody to defend Jokic and we need somebody to defend Embiid, but now there's also Sengun, now there's also Wemby, now there's also, even Nurkic in Phoenix. Hey, we need a big body to throw at him. Bam Adebayo, right? There's other guys that you've got to now deal with. My goodness, if you're going up against the Knicks, they're going to crush you on the boards if you don't have, even Josh Hart is going to come flying in and crush you on the boards if you don't have a center in the mix. So teams, I think, are starting to come back around. The pendulum is swinging, and there's value at the center position again. Maybe not like it once was in, say, the 90s or something like that, but still there's value in the center position. And so I think the Utah Jazz have positioned themselves well, that they're at least dipping the toe in the water, kind of trying to find out, hey, what are teams willing to give up for Walker Kessler if there is indeed that demand at the center position now this summer.
And the very best coaches and front offices will work together to make sure if they Walker Kessler or Zach Edey, more kind of drop style coverages, those kind of things that will work together to find a way. They believe the guy can play, get him in, plug him in, and we'll make the system work. Not that you build a system around them, but on their minutes, we're not going to be a switch everything team. We're not going to be a level of the ball team. We will play a drop coverage style with that player in there. That's one of the maybe the single biggest changes that we've seen. If for a very long time with me watching the NBA growing up, one, there was no such thing as zone defense because everything would have been called illegal defense. But what you did was you dumped it into the post on offense, played through a big guy everybody wanted to, and that big guy drew a double team, and they kicked the ball out generally the same side because you double off the same guy, and you might get a shot that way. People forget this. Back in the day, Michael Jordan was so good and so uncoverable that they actually instituted illegal offense rules one year, because what the Bulls started doing was they literally put all 4 other guys on the other side of the floor. And unless you were going to bring a double team on Jordan out around the 3-point line on the opposite side, which you wouldn't do because you'd leave somebody wide open, nobody could cover him one-on-one. So the league changed the offensive rules that you would have 2 players at all times on basically drew a line straight down the middle of the paint. You had to have at least 2 players on each side of the floor at all times, just to make it able to cover him. But that's how simple the game was then. Now teams they'll run a lot of different schemes, offensively, defensively. They're not married to one set of personnel where this is the only way we play. They do a lot of different things, and that's a lot. That makes guys like Edey and Clingan and Walker Kessler and Brook Lopez. Those guys can be stars still in the NBA and play a big role because you're in a spot where teams are smart about the way they can utilize players like that.
Yeah. That's just it. It's funny when people, I think you're right. People don't realize how different the game is now. Like, you go back and you watch a game, even from 20 years ago, go back and look at like the Shaq Kobe Lakers. It almost looks like a different sport that they're playing. When you watch just the way, I mean, even if you're not paying attention to the X's and O's and all that, just walking by and passing, you can go, whoa, there's the organization on the floor looks so different than what we're seeing today. The game has shifted a lot, but that is an interesting Jordan rule that I had forgotten about. I forgot that was the thing that existed.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, you can Google it. Just Google Michael Jordan illegal offense rules, and it will come up there. It'll pop up as one of the top results, if not the top result. And then you'll be able to read about the league changing the rules. I want to say it might have been the 1985 or 86 season that they changed the rules with that, because that's how uncoverable Jordan was with that. If anybody is really interested, Mike Prada wrote a great book a couple years ago. It's like the NBA in pictures, and it's all pictures from different eras of the errors. That was the Boston
I heard
accent
that.
coming out, putting an R where it doesn't
Errors.
belong. Different, and then I just said different. Man, I'm a mess tonight. I'm getting a little punchy.
It's draft eve, and Keith is already on fumes.
That's it. The Boston accent's going to come pouring out here. Different eras, where he put those out there, and he put it all out there where you could actually pull up all these things and see like the spacing in the 90s, what it looked like, what was considered to be good spacing. And it's like, oh my God, like no one would score today. Like no one would ever
it's
score.
a center in the post, and then your 4 is at the elbow. Right?
Yeah, at the elbow or the top of the key at most.
Yep.
Like Charles Oakley lived there for the Knicks, like lived at the top of the key on those top of the key jumpers from little kick passes from Patrick Ewing, like just unbelievable.
All right, let's go here. GCB said, with the expansion coming and players taking 3 to 4 years to develop, do you think it would be wise for the league to go to an invite-only draft for one and dones? Freshman players have to be lottery, sophomore first round.
No.
I
don't like restricting the draft any further than it is already. I don't even love the way it's restricted now. I look at it very simply. If you're 18 years old and you can enter the workforce, we shouldn't be keeping people from entering the NBA. Now that's up to the teams to decide. And I get it. The team, I understand the side of the teams don't want to be in high school gyms and scouting kids when they're 15, 16 years old, but a lot of them do it anyway. And, I don't like restricting the ability for players to enter into the draft. I've given in that nobody wants to change that rule. It's very funny when the CBA discussions came up. Remember, for a little while, it was like, this side's going to fight to change the one and done rule. No, this side's going to fight. I was told by people who were involved in the negotiations and the setup for the negotiations, one of the easiest low-hanging fruit was one and done rule. Do we want to change it? Team side, the owner side was, nah, we're good. We like it the way it is. Player side was, nope, we're good. We like it the way it is. Check mark, done. Move on to the next item. And part of the reason the player side like it that way is it's more jobs for veterans. Every kid who comes in the league at 18, 19 years old pushes a veteran out on the other end. And they don't want that. They want those guys to be able to hang around. So I think it's fine the way it is. I think it's fine the way it is, even if we get into expansion.
I do philosophically agree that if you're 18, you should be allowed to enter the NBA draft. I mean, you want to go back to 1965, right? The argument was made that if we can ask an 18-year-old to go fight and die in Vietnam, we should be able to allow them to vote for the decision makers that are going to make that decision to potentially send them into that type of situation. Obviously, this is much less serious than that, but I think 18-year-olds should be allowed in the NBA, and it should not be with any kind of restrictions or anything like that. All right, let's go here. Andrew said, if Green and Kleba and Tim Hardaway Jr. are the main trade chips, are Jeremy Grant, Paul George, or Brandon Ingram possible? Longtime fan and listener. Keep up the great show. Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment there at the end. We really appreciate it. But I would have to think, one of those things is not like the others, in that I would think Jeremy Grant is probably not quite in the same tier as Brandon Ingram, who's probably not quite in the same tier as Paul George, frankly. So I would say that Jeremy Grant is the more likely of the three, the most likely of the three. And maybe if those are main trade chips. But in any case, to me, Kate, the question is, what are you plussing up the offer with? Because I don't think any of those players, even in combination with each other, is enough to get any of the guys that are listed here.
Maybe Grant, if the Blazers were like, we can get out of the contract, then maybe if that's the direction they're looking to go, I could see that potentially being the direction if it's a Mavs trade. We're not doing our state. So this is kind of a combo, regular front office show, front office overtime, because like we said, Trevor was tied up earlier in the day today. So we're kind of doing a combo. So we're not doing all the news, but news has come out. Mark Stein reported. And if it's Mavs news and it's Mark Stein, you should be listening and paying attention. that Tim Hardaway Jr. maybe had to do the Detroit Pistons. That may be a way they use up some of their cap space. And I would assume that's Tim Hardaway Jr. in some form of asset headed to the Detroit Pistons there. Now, it's only a 1-year deal. He's only got, it's an expiring contract. I guess it's probably only going to be a second round pick that goes, but that's fine. Maybe 2 seconds. It's probably not going to be a first with that. But yeah, Dallas could pivot if they said, hey, we're going to go a different direction. We're going to go big game hunting after one of these guys. Paul George, this would be another one. This would have to be an opt-in and trade situation. Otherwise, you're running into hard cap issues if it was a sign and trade and all kinds of messy things there. Ingram Grant, they're already signed for next year, so that's a simpler process. I don't know that that's where the Pelicans would go because they're not going to treat Brandon Ingram as a straight salary dump, and I don't think those guys are enough for them to get him. Same with I don't think the Clippers would say, all right, well, we got to get something. Let's go that way. I don't think that's how it would play out.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's go. Let's go here. Thoughts on Bub Carrington? The guy's tape is ridiculous. How is he not a top 10 pick? Well, I got to jump out here, but I will just say this. I had like 6 hours in the car today driving. I listened to a bunch of our guy Bryce Simon as well as Sam Vicini. They are super high on Bub Carrington. And I'll admit, after listening to them for that long, they're starting to sell me on him as well. So he's rising up my completely made up, totally in my head draft board. I don't know if he gets up to top 10, but they're starting to convince me that he should be up a lot higher than he is on a lot of boards right now.
Yeah, I'm with you with that. I know you got to go, so I
got to
keep
bounce.
my thought. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. Guys, we will be just before Trevor goes, we will be fully live tomorrow for the NBA draft, right at the start of the draft. Trevor and I will be joined by Sean Davis. If you've been there in the past, we'll break everything down live as it happens. We hope for chaos and trades and all kinds of madness that we can react to live. If not, we'll be reacting to the picks. Sean is locked in on all these guys too. I am way more locked in than I usually am here. But Trevor, enjoy the rest of your night, guys. I'll finish out with the last handful of questions we have. I'm already queued up, and then we'll call it a night. Thanks for joining Front Office Overtime, man. We appreciate you.
This was fun. Thanks, everybody. And let's go. Big day tomorrow. Get your rest if you can, because tomorrow we're going to need it.
No doubt. All right, Brian, your question, Bub Carrington. Yeah, man, this is a guy teams really like. He was the definition of somebody who folks came around to late with this. You started to hear from teams on him right around the ACC tournament of this kid can really play. Like, what's the deal here? This guy is somebody we need to keep an eye on. Now, there's a couple question marks with him. Is he a point guard? Is he a shooting guard? What's he going to turn into? Is he going to shoot it well enough? He was a freshman last year, only shot 41% overall, 31% from three, but the form looks good. That Pitt team wasn't super stacked, so he had to do a lot kind of himself there. So, but really good player, Brian. I if not a top 10 pick, and he may not end up being that, he's probably a top 10 talent. At least. So I think you're going to see him probably go in the lottery, maybe just outside. I think ESPN's latest mock, which dropped like an hour or so ago, had him going 15th to the Miami Heat. And if there's any intel involved in that pick, then we should all probably be pretty high on it because the Heat generally do pretty good in the draft process here. All right, we're going to go to Charlie Becker. Is a chance the Spurs draft Edey at 4 or 8? No, he won't go that high. He is a mid-lottery guy at most. He's definitely not going to go that high. Maybe the Spurs, if they were to trade back, maybe take him. But I don't think so. And I don't know that that's where they want to go for a player next to Wembanyama up front. So that's a little high for him. You're probably the absolute highest of high end he'll go is Memphis at 9 if they stick there. I'm going to go to Adam. Adam, I saw your question. So Adam's question, and I've got to have Trevor teach me how to pull up tweets here live on the show, and we'll get into that at some point. But Trevor's question was, could a team sign? You can use a player's early bird rights to sign a player. So his example was J.D. Davison, who's coming off a two-way. Boston has his early bird rights. Could they sign him to a big contract and then trade him. There's two parts to that where it doesn't really work, Adam. He would be base year compensation mixed there, so that would be tricky. He's also arenas limited as a second year player, so that would also be tricky. So unfortunately, there's not a loophole there that teams can they wouldn't be able to use that to their advantage that way. So the Jay asked who was the NBA in pictures. I think that's what the book was called. It might have actually been called Spaced Out now that I think about it. But it's Mike Prada, and I'll put it in the chat so everybody knows how to spell it. But it's Mike Prada. He worked for a long time for SB Nation as an editor. He's a great guy with that, so he might be there with that. So yeah, I would check that book out. It's a cool book. It's obvious it's not just pictures, but there's a lot of great pictures about how the NBA has developed here. Could the Lakers get Edey? Yeah, sure. I think the Lakers could definitely get Zach Edey. I think that's definitely in play for them. If that's the direction they wanted to go with that. And then this is the last one I'm going to do before calling it a night. I've got some work to do that I've got to get done. So we're going to get into this from Del Toledo. Jazz prior to Ainge were real quiet, but with Ainge, a rumor every 5 minutes. What's the difference in style? Danny Ainge loves to talk. He is a guy who really gets out there and will talk to a lot of different people and mention a lot of different things to folks. He's open about a lot of things. Now I always will say this: you got to watch out for the stuff he's not talking about. That's usually what gets done. For example, when he made the Kyrie Irving trade, that came out of nowhere. With the Celtics. He went a completely different way, and that's kind of how it all came together with him. Prior to that, the Jazz, especially under Dennis Lindsey, that was Dennis Lindsey came over from the Spurs, and if you know the Spurs, there is nothing gets out of San Antonio. They keep it completely silent until there's actually a move that is ready to be made, and then they will actually make the move that they want to make. And then I'm going to do one more question because it was in here and I saw it. So I want to shout it out real quick. From Christian here says, Keith and Trevor obviously had to go. It's the worst job market for college grads since 1990. If I wanted to work in a front office, how would I go about it? Or am I doomed to corporate Zoom calls for eternity? Well, I hope not on the last part. I hope you find something you really enjoy. But I will say with this, if you want to work in a front office, one, find your niche. Are you going to be a cap guy? You're going to be a scout. Are you going to be, and if you're going to be a scout, is it going to be college scouting, international scouting, pro scouting? What is it you want to do? You can't basically walk in and say, I want to be a GM. I mean, that's great, but you're not going to probably get hired off the street as the general manager. So you got to find it. Analytics is obviously another big part. Data scientists. If you can code, that's something that is always in demand for these front offices. If you can write code, if you could do any of that kind of stuff, they love that kind of stuff right now. I would also say, Christian, if you're super interested in this, check out Sports Business Classroom. It is a week-long learning exercise that runs concurrent with the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. And what you do is you go out there and you get a week-long crash course in all things NBA, and they have different focuses. There's a salary cap major, there's a scouting major, there's a broadcast major. If that's the way you want to go and learn about, you can go out there, do Sports Business Classroom, really learn. And one of the coolest parts about it is you get a chance to make connections with folks who are actually in the league, whether they're front office personnel, coaches, people who work in the league office, people who work with agencies and the players union. You'll make a ton of connections with people through that. It's all about putting in the effort, but I would really try to develop your network, try to meet people, get out there, get in front of people, get your work, but really find your niche. That's going to be it. You can't just assume you're going to jump in there and say, I love basketball, because guess what? Every person who applies for one of those jobs loves basketball. It's not enough to just love the game of basketball. You need to have a niche that you're going to bring. It's something you're truly a subject matter expert in. And if you feel like you can get there, you got to get that work in front of people. You might have to do it for free for a little bit. That part of it stinks. but you may need to just start putting yourself out there. But that Sports Business Classroom, I highly, highly recommend it. If you go to their website, Google Sports Business Classroom, if you go to their website, you will see they have a list of success stories that is ridiculously long of people who have great jobs all over the sports landscape, especially in the front offices. So check that out if that's something you're really, really interested in. And I lied. I'm going to do one more just to close here. We don't know when front office overtime is going to start. It's whenever I'm available because they're pretty much going to be me. Trevor jumped in today because we didn't have a chance to do a normal show earlier today. Probably be sometime, let's say 7 p.m. Eastern or later. There will not be one tomorrow night because we'll be live starting at 8 p.m. Trevor and I with Sean Davis for the NBA draft. We will be live. We're still figuring out what we're going to do on the second night. We may kind of take the second night off of live broadcasting, but we'll be watching. We'll be breaking it down somewhere. Front Office Friday is still the plan. We will do a Front Office Friday with that there, but tomorrow night, probably just before 8 o'clock. The draft starts at 8, but there'll be the whole preamble that happens, and it'll probably actually start closer to like 5 past or 10 past 8 by the time they actually say the Hawks are on the clock. So we'll get in there with that. So we'll be there. Trevor, Sean, and I for the second round on Thursday. We'll figure that out. Friday plan is for right now still Front Office Friday. We'll see how we recover because that draft show that's going to be probably 3+ hours with that. And then starting Sunday night, the 30th, free agency open 6 p.m. Eastern on the 30th. Trevor and I will be live at some point Sunday night. How we've generally tried to do this is we let things calm down a little bit, let it feel like things are slowing down. Maybe people are starting to go to bed a little bit, so it's usually pretty late. In the evening on the East Coast, maybe even early morning on the East Coast, and then we try to get into all that stuff with that. But thanks guys for coming out, checking us out tonight. We had almost, I want to say it was like 7,000-8,000 people in here. Thanks for spending some time with Trevor and I here on Front Office Overtime. We'll see you tomorrow for the NBA draft. Enjoy draft day, everybody.